And certainly second half against Stoke, we were outplayed. We were played off the park.
Well, just the last 20 minutes, though. I mean, really.
But unfortunately, that last 20 minutes
was awful.
And we should have had the game dead and buried at that point. So had they scored, well, they did score too, but we should have been 3-0 up. And we've talked been an issue.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit too about ties that feel like losses. I didn't walk away from that yesterday, even if we somehow would have ponied that up, to use a Simon phrase, and let Everton nick a goal to take that. I was really happy with the performance. I really was. And
I was.
Yeah, you have to be. And it almost reminded me, what was it, a couple of years ago when we played Newcastle at home and Tim Krul played out of his ass.
And we lost that one.
And we lost that one 1-0. That's what that reminded me of, is that we played so well, and it was just so frustrating. I mean, the Harry Kane breakaway. You got to put that away. You know, and who was it? Was it Chadley that tried to go between his legs, Howard's legs, and then he just caught him. Oh, no, it was Mason. Caught him in the foot on his breakaway. And
it was left-footed by Mason.
Exactly, yeah, left-footed effort, and then Chadley skied the ball over the crossbar. It seemed like a half a dozen times, but it was probably 2 or 3 times. And it seemed like that was some of the problem, too, is that we were getting clear shots on goal from anywhere from 18 to 25 yards out, and we were putting them over the crossbar, putting them wide.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was the disappointing factor. The quality of the shooting.
Yeah. And you want to say that that's a fixable thing, but when you're already playing at a Premier League level, you should be hitting the target. Inside 25 yards, you should be hitting the target at full speed, and it shouldn't matter. Yeah. I'm a firm proponent of that. Let the goalkeeper make a save.
And that's a good segue into what Sam felt would be the good title for this week's show, and that's the other statistic that we were in double figures for. Sam.
What?
Our fouls. Remember we talked about this at the end of the game yesterday, the double-double.
Yes, so that's right. What was that stat? It was 20 shots.
20 shots and 19 fouls.
19 fouls.
So we equated it to being Kenny's 30 burger. We called it the double-double.
Yeah, there you go. I like that.
I mean, it does steal a phrase for any English supporters that we have in basketball. When you have a double-double, it's double points in scoring and then double rebounds. And
4 assists. Yeah.
It's a good stat. And you just wish that you had a triple-double, a quadruple-double would have been great, where you had double-digit in shots, double-digit shots on goal, double-digits in tackles, and double-digits in goals.
It's like a heavyweight 12-round fight that ends in a draw.
That, for English sports fans, is what we call the quadruple-double, and that is a mercurial stat that every once in a blue moon somebody reaches. But yeah, it was nice. I mean, look, I think that you take those stats, and then I tell you that the scoreline's 2-0 or 3-0, and you'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And it could have been, and it arguably should have been. And again, I think we're a little, at least I am, I think we deserve to be a little bit apologetic because we talked about how drab we were last week. We weren't.
Sure.
We weren't. If you really watch that game, and I know it, I understand how it sounds. But
so Spursy.
Yeah, I mean, we should be on 8 points. That's the way I look at it.
This is why we suffer.
I think we should have drawn United. I think we
deserve
should have
point.
drawn Stoke, and I think that we should have. No, actually, we should have beat Stoke. That's 4.
Draw
with Leicester, and I think we should have won Everton. I think we should be on 8 points.
Yeah. I put 10 because I really feel that we should have beaten. I think we should have gotten 3 from United. I think we had the better chances when it came down to it. But I would take 8 right now because right now we're 16th tied with Watford right above the relegation zone. So it begs the question. I think, was it Pete that asked, when do we start panicking? Or somebody asked that for a question for the podcast.
Pete Hain.
Pete the Boogie. At Pete the Boogie.
30 minutes in and we're already doing the question. But it was a great question. Like, when do we give up?
When do we jump off a bridge?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. Don't panic.
No, but I mean, we all know we have an executive group that tends not to be very patient in times like this. Simon, I think you mentioned earlier, Ramos was shown the door. Was it 2 points out of 8 or 9 games? Did you say?
2 points out of 8 games.
2 points from 8.
I think it was right at the beginning of November.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit.
But they were playing
about
abysmal. That's the difference. Wasn't
who?
what Wanda Ramos' team?
In 08?
Yes. They were terrible.
Well, I'm trying to. I do remember those opening games. We seemed to be losing 2-1 a lot. I think Sunderland, Aston Villa, letting in late goals and heads were dropping. I went over to see the whole game. I think, I circled that one thinking, it's a one-day Ramos team, Hull, newly promoted, at 3 points. And we battered them senseless, but we just didn't have a bit like yesterday. We just didn't have that finishing product. And I don't remember the guy who scored, but he had a cracking goal, and he'd done that 2 weeks earlier at the empty crates to record a famous victory for Hull there. And they were high flying, and they ended up getting into trouble. And I think we beat them in the reverse, if I'm not mistaken, later on in the season when Harry was on board, but. Yeah, it was a pretty woeful team. I remember the 2-0 loss to Udinese in the Europa League when Jamie O'Hara got sent off, and we just had a lot of that lack of cohesion, and people just didn't have a clue what was going on. I don't see that happening now. So but I think in the peripheral vision, people will be glancing over their shoulder at Parch, and you could see his frustration yesterday. And he normally is not that emotive, but he was getting quite upset with what was going on.
Wasn't he?
And that's good, because it means that they're not following the game plan versus not buying into the game plan. And I think they are buying into the game plan, and we just didn't pull it off yesterday, plain and simple. And I think we need to really now highlight what were the good points. And everyone's been raving about Dyer. We mentioned that earlier. He put himself about an awful lot, got himself in a little bit of trouble. But I thought his
one time. Well, I remember, right?
He got the yellow card. I mean,
right.
And it could have gotten a little worse. And I think he was a bit cautious towards the end to make sure he didn't get sent off, because I think that would be a bit of a blow for the lad. And obviously he's going to be thinking about the tackle on Cleverley, which certainly was not a foul, but ended up in a very serious injury for Cleverley. He broke his leg, correct?
It looked pretty nasty.
Is that what you said? He broke his leg?
Well, it appeared
unconfirmed.
No, unconfirmed. Unconfirmed, to be clear. Right. But he was in that area.
He was a lot worse off than.
And it looked like, and it wasn't. I don't think there was any maliciousness in that tackle. It was a good.
But it was full-blooded. It was full-blooded.
It was. It's an unfortunate. This league, I think, of all the larger leagues in Europe, probably is more forgiving for a tackle like that. You probably see more of them in the Premier League than other leagues. But and even the commentators, I think they made an interesting point. When you allow for those kind of tackles to happen more times than not, and invariably there's a chance of that happening, which is a shame, because actually Cleverley didn't really play terribly bad in that game, I thought. And he's been playing quite well for them. So
I thought the referee didn't have a great game. There were some inconsistencies in his calls. I think Danny Rose had almost a scissor kick later on that went virtually unpunished. And
it was very high on that tackle, wasn't it?
Yeah, and when Dyer got his yellow, I'd seen worse out there already. So I thought Anthony Jones was the referee.
And then he gave a bit of a silly one for Ali when actually there was some confusion about that, because Martinez thought that. I was just saying the Martinez thought that yellow was given to Dyer. So when Dyer did get his yellow card,
because it was a Dyer foul, but Ali kind of got in the way of the early free kick,
which was really ridiculous, because I'm not sure that Barry was really going to. In other words, if Ali hadn't have done that, I think the ref might have blown the whistle to say no, it's too quick of a restart. So to give him a yellow there was a bit ticky-tacky, I thought.
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes to highlight where I thought he was a little inconsistent.
Well, and Kane's attempt at goal on the 1v1 with Howard, that was actually offside, just by a smidge. But that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, that's most of those they get right, or most of those they are going to call offside. So when you get one that goes your way, listen, it's all going to balance out.
Yeah.
And we're going to get one that goes against us, and we're all going to be bitching and moaning because they're going to score, whoever that someone is. And so it doesn't really balance out. But over the course of 38 games, I think all that stuff kind of equals itself out. It really does.
Yep.
I thought Lloris. Let me tell you what amazes me about him. With a game like yesterday, where Everton were hoofing it, upfield. They barely offensively used their midfield whatsoever. Every time that one of their players would get on the ball, it seemed like, in the back third, they were just winging it upfield and hoping that Lukaku or somebody would get underneath it, and they really didn't get a chance to utilize their midfield. Consequently, they didn't get a lot of shots on goal at all. And when you keep someone busy like a Tim Howard, he's going to be in the moment, and he's going to be in the game, and because he knows about every 10 to 15 minutes he's going to have a shot, howling at his head. Lloris once again had to make a really nice, and listen, he's an acrobatic goalkeeper. He's not a traditional goalkeeper, so maybe it's not as difficult as a save as he makes him look sometimes, but that howitzer that went above his head that he had to tip over the bar, I thought was a really nice save for someone who hadn't been in the game hardly at all, and then you have to pull off something like that. That amazes me about keepers. They're a little bit of a different animal anyway. And Simon, you can speak to that because you've put the gloves on a couple times.
Our chairman is a different animal, to be clear.
He is. The lemur.
The
beast. The beast.
I'm wearing a shirt that says that, actually, the beast. So I thought Lloris once again played a really good game. I was happy to see Rose back. It looked like his first game of the season, to be quite honest. He had a little bit of error proneness about him, but he also made some remarkable tackles and tracked back so well.
Yeah, he's become a great player. He really
you gotta think that if he's been healthy all year long, he'd be in the England squad too.
He's the best England left back, I think. I'm not saying that because I'm
above
biased.
Leighton Baines.
Yeah, I really do. I think he's way more multifaceted. He's way faster, bombs down the line. He's every bit as good defensively. Can score goals. It doesn't, maybe not as good from set pieces and free kicks, but yeah, I think so. I mean, lacking Bain. Don't get me wrong, Bain's a very good player, but I would agree with you. I think that if Rose, wasn't sort of transitioning back into the first team for Spurs, he would be an easy left back choice for England.
No, I think so. And speaking of that, it got announced Harry Kane and Ryan Mason have been selected to the England squad by Roy Hodgson and his staff. So. Congratulations to Harry and Ryan. Very well deserved. I can see a Danny Rose and an Eric Dyer and maybe one or two others getting those shots in the very near future as well, especially with some of the exhibition-style games that England are going to play.
I know it's kind of linked to this transfer window. I think Paul O'Keefe kind of mentioned this, that it was in the Mirror, which obviously lends no credibility as soon as those words escape my lips. But Chelsea have pretty much said to Spurs, name your price on Danny Rose, which they then went on to say £15 million, which isn't exactly naming your price. They've just kind of named it for you. But that's not the first time that rumour came up. I think City kind of asked about that at some point last season, or I think it was last season, and Chelsea have made that noise a couple of times. So is there anything in there? I personally would rather he stay, because I don't think Davis, obviously now that Rose is healthy, he's sitting on the bench again, and Rose validated why he should be starting every single week. But if he went, we're light at cover at left back, and I know that's not something Jan wants to do, even though that's what he does for Belgium. We talked about that before, so I say Rose has to stay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance of this. There's really no cover. I mean, Davies is decent fill, but from a permanent perspective at left back, he's not the solution.
Kane had such a remarkable season offensively last term, and he was obviously player of the year. But there were games, especially in the second half of the season, where Danny Rose was the best player on the pitch.
Yeah,
and that is not readily forgotten, especially for as badly as most people wanted him gone after the previous term had ended. So I think almost out of all the players on the 18-man roster that play every single week, or at least are on the subs bench, he has bought into this system as much as anybody, and is being rewarded by what it's allowing his skill set to do. I think he's playing remarkable football. If he can stay healthy, he's going to be an England starter. He really is.
Yeah.
And he's going to be in the World Cup in 3 years.
Injuries aside, I think we have found stability in our back four. Walker's still got a little bit of work to do, but I love the same setup and Simon, you mentioned